All right, thanks, Holly. All right, so we're all excited today about the May revise, right? Not that excited, but excited to talk about it. So I did some calculating yesterday after the announcement, and the way I'll try to explain it, it's a $66.7 million cut to the existing 2021 proposed budget. So if you subtract the COLA, which is 12.3 million or $12,333,000, it's really like a $54 million cut to our prior year amount. So either way you want to do it, it is a $66.7 million cut. If you want to do a percentage, let me, I calculated the percentage, take away the COLA, and if you were going to go to prior year 1920, it would be a 10.0928 cut to our prior year 1920 allocation. So the way it shakes out, I'm looking at it, if you tabulate that 54 million to the prior year, it's about 48 million to K-12 and about 6.3 million to community college, which adds up to about 54.3, 54.4, whatever cut. So I'll pause there to see if people have questions. You can unmute yourself. I mean, there are a few of us on. I don't want to type too much in the chat, but if you have questions about that, what I just went over, 66 million is consisting of the $12.3 million COLA and then the $54.3 million cut to the prior year amount, which adds up to the 66.7. So, so 10% cut from 1920, pretty much so. Let me get that exact amount that I calculated, because I'm working with numbers, not exact numbers yet. So Kristen, it's a 10.09. Is that what you said, 10.09? Yeah, okay, so that's about our, you could go 0928 if you want to get even more, because I know with the dollars, the rounding could be off a little bit. But that would be from the prior year, 1920. So I did calculate how much that would be for everyone. So if you did want to unmute or ask a question, I could answer it. Okay, so Kristen asked, 1920 including our COLA this year. Correct. So you got to, since we never got the COLA, it depends on how you want to look at it. You could say, okay, it's a 12 point whatever cut from our current budget of 2021 that we just did the CFAD, or it's a 10 point, what did I say, 0928 from the prior year. So Kelly says, how does that work to cut from the prior year? So I don't understand. What is that? I'm just trying to phrase it in a way that you guys could understand it, because we never did go into this year with the COLA. But if you want to just use 12.3% off the current CFAD, you could do that too. Will each consortium, this is from John, will each consortium decide how to distribute those cuts, or will the proportion be predetermined as mentioned with the split? So no, it's really up to the consortia. Everyone's going to take that cut, 12.3 to the current budget, and you guys can figure out, as ways the law is written now, there's only a few things you can do. So you can have a discussion amongst your consortia. You can say, okay, how much does everybody have remaining? That would include carryover and unspent funds. How much are you going to need? what are the priorities for next year? You probably are identifying areas where with the COVID-19 situation, you're going to need more help in, the trouble spots that you're undergoing right now. So it would be really up to the consortia to have that decision. So the state is not going to come in and take money. There's no statute that allows us to do that unless someone's an ineffective member, but that's really would go back within the consortia anyway. So we have Ed Code 84914 for members that don't want to do this anymore or ineffective members. Or you could have a bylaw at your consortia level. If someone has extra funding from a prior year, that gets distributed to help with the cuts. But that's really a local decision. There's no Ed Code that talks about carryover as it is now. Now that doesn't mean some kind of trailer bill could be put in there that changes, but that would be after we get this revised CFAD process. So let's see with Shamila, how do we get our new amount? Do we have to revise the CFAD and get it approved? Yeah. So what'll happen is we'll do a webinar. Veronica's out today, but I'm assuming that we can do a webinar next Friday or Thursday.
Neil?
Sometime, yes. One second, Ryan.
Yeah.
So we'll do a webinar next week. We'll go over the specifics on how the NOVA gets updated with the amendment and how you're going to process that. And we'll get that scheduled and out to you probably on Monday. And then you guys can sign up for that. But the way it'll work is once I get the right numbers, the actual down to the dollar amounts from Department of Finance or whoever, and then I can calculate the 12.3 or 10 point, whatever cut to the prior year. I'll go into NOVA. We'll do a allocation adjustment, and then each consortia will have to come in. They'll have to approve or figure out how those allocations are going to be, the allocation amendments dispersed among each member. Then they'll go back, just kind of like the CFAD discussion, but you'll have less amount. And then it'll be certified by each member and submitted to the state. And we will need the direct funded members sooner than the fiscal agents. But the drop dead date will be June 30th, like we did last year. But I will be working directly with the direct funded consortia to try to get that information earlier. So Ryan, did you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Neil, I just wanted to ask you to restate based on the 2020-21 allocation, 6 mil, and you're talking about what we just approved for 2021. So
Right.
did you say that was like 12%? Did I hear that right?
I'm kind of having trouble hearing you, Ryan. You're kind of breaking up. So what I'll do is,
okay.
well, it's a little better now. Why don't you repeat that? Can you repeat what you just said?
Okay. No, I just asked if you could repeat the. Yeah, I asked if you could repeat.
Yeah, your connection. So Ryan, what I'll do, you're kind of breaking up again.
2021 allocation.
So let me give Mount Sac as an example. Last year in 1920, Mount Sac had $35.7 million. Then this year we get the COLA, $817,920. So Mount Sac's new amount for 2021 was $36,535,269. So that's what they did the CFAT on. Now here come the cuts. The cuts amount to about 4,423,517, roughly. So their new amount is going to be going in with this revised CFAT about 32,112,468. So if you follow that along, Ryan, you will see how we built your budget to 2021 and then how the cuts, which I'm using like a, you know, close to 12 point, what is it, 12.29 or something percent cut. And basically what I'm doing is, they said a $66.7 million cut, and I'm just using the share that we did for each consortia to how we built the budget. Now we're going to share in the cut. So Mount Sacs cut is $4.4 million.
Right.
So
you said what I was looking for.
okay, I'm glad.
Yeah, because I was on my phone before and I lost that audio.
Okay, so does that
All right,
help?
that's good.
Does that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So let's see. So Pedro said I calculated 66.7 of 550, which includes COLA. Yes, so it would be 66.7 million from the $897,000 allocation for 2021. It's not the 67.7 million from last year's amount. So you'd be shorting yourself. Correct. All right, so Emma says, Neil, would you provide a preliminary allocation for 2021 for all consortia? Yeah, that's what I'm going to do in Nova once, because these numbers that I have are based on like rounded numbers and estimates. So is the 66.7 million really 66,700,000? It might be 66,689,000. I don't know. That's why I need to get the right numbers. So when I go into Nova, I have accurate data to run those numbers. So that's why these numbers I'm shouting out today are just kind of estimates, because I haven't been given the exact numbers by finance. I'm just going with what everyone has been hearing, and I'm kind of calculating percentages, but they could be off a little bit. It might not be 67.7 even. It could be something less or more, depending on rounding. So it's good to ballpark right now just to see the impact. But when I get to Nova, I will be putting in exact dollar amounts down to the penny, so to speak. So Bob says, so a revised CFAT could change the proportions each member receives from the consortia allocation. The proportions of the CFAT just approved could be different. So if a member is going to get less than the prior year, so if you look at the ed code for 84914, it says in the event that you get less than the prior year amount, you would get a proportionate share of that lesser amount. And maybe I'll pull up the ed code right now and read it so I don't mistake or misspeak. So bear with me while I get there, because Bob brought a good point up. So I'm going on the website, because that's where I go all the time. And I'm going to governance, administrator, governance, legislation, going to AB 104 ed code. And I'm going down to 84914, I think. Okay, here it is. Okay, it's number 2 in 84914. For any year for which the chancellor and the superintendent allocated amount of funds for the consortia less than the amount allocated in the prior year, this is what's happening, the amount of funds to be distributed to a member of that consortia shall not be reduced by a percentage greater than the percentage by which the total amount of funds allocated to the consortia decreased, unless the consortia makes at least one of the following findings related to the member for which the distribution would be reduced further. And that's A, a member no longer wishes to provide services consistent with the plan. B, The member cannot provide services that address the needs identified in the adult ed plan. C, the member has been ineffective in providing services that address the needs identified in the adult ed plan, and a reasonable intervention has not resulted in improvements. So, like Bob's saying, if you go below that proportionate percentage, so let's say it's a 12 point, and we'll get the exact percentage so you guys can work with that. If it's 12.3 or 12.229, or no, yeah, 12.29, I think the COLA was 2.29. That'll be the percentage cut that everyone should take. If it's going to be greater than that, then you better have cause according to 84914. Now, there could be a collegial discussion about if somebody wanted to take a bigger hit, you know, maybe they don't need the money, they're not going to offer those services. This is kind of the same discussion we had around the first time when the CFAD, we had a few consortia that the member decided not to use the COLA because they weren't going to provide services, so the money was given out to other members, and that was under 84914. So there is an opportunity to look at that. It's going to be decided in the consortia level. So, but just remember, we do have existing ed code that governs that. And I'll get into the whole flexibility thing that I've been hearing a little bit later. Let me just get through these questions. So Pedro says, do we anticipate another impact in August? I haven't heard, but that's when the tax revenue comes in. That's maybe when they'll figure out the federal money. So I know there's something going on in August, but they haven't really spelt out what that means. So stay tuned on that. Mitch says, when will the final budget be approved by the legislature? They have statutorily, like July 1. They have to send the budget to the governor, I think June 15th or something, and then he has until July 1 to sign it, something like that. So Kristen says, by when do we have to have our new allocation schedules to you? It will take for us to meet and approve. So Kristen, if you're direct funded, this will hold up your money if you take a long time, because the interagency agreement, we want to get that money to you in August or September. And if you're direct funded and you take 2 months to meet, then maybe I'll go with the lower amount and we could catch up with you guys another time. I don't know, we'll have to figure that out. But if you're a fiscal agent, you have until June 30th to get us the revised CFAD. If you're direct funded and you can't schedule that meeting soon enough, I could just go with estimates at the, you know, the cut, because that's what I was talking about the last few weeks. Do you anticipate taking a greater than cut? So if we're talking about, you know, when I read that ed code 84914, and it said you take a proportionate percentage of the cut, you know, it's the same amount as the allocation decrease. So if you plan to have a member that's going to get more than that, and you're going to have to use ed code to justify that, let me know. Otherwise, I can just go in and do across the board cut. So I need to know that up front pretty quick. And I have an idea of which the consortia are doing things a little differently, and I'll reach out to them and see how they're going to approach this. So please keep me posted. Okay, Bronca says, oh, she's answering. We think that the final budget will not be known until, so they have to pass it by July 1. There could be adjustments as the tax revenue comes in, but that budget has to be passed. They could go late, but then they wouldn't be able to pay their bills. Christy says, in reallocating the new amount, do we still follow the guidelines to say member can't get less than they did from the prior year? Yes. So that's the ed code that I read. So please follow the 84914 ed code on reducing the prior year amount. Annabelle says, does the new allocation have to be approved through the public board meeting. So if everybody's taking that, 12.3% cut, and it's just an allocation cut, that's really up to you. So if I would check with your legal counsel, but if there's no decision or discussion and it's just across the board cut, that's up to you to determine if you need to have a public meeting or not. I don't make that call. So I would check with district council on that to see if that would require a public meeting. Otherwise, you could just go into Nova and have each member certify that. So can't really give you too much guidance on that, but you have that option to look for legal counsel. So Karen says, can a member decide to contribute excess funds back to the consortia? Yes. So you'd have to do it with cause, so you didn't violate that. But if the member chooses not to offer these services, then that's cause. It's in that 84914 Ed Code A, and then allows you to use those funds and give it to other members. Plus, a member could do, after this fact, an allocation amendment. So let's say you go through the CFAD process, everybody takes the 12.3% cut, right? You submit your CFAD. Then after the CFAD, you have that discussion where an allocation amendment for carryover, you could, if someone's carrying a large amount in 1819, or they have leftover in 1920 that they know they're not going to spend, but they want to keep their amount year to year the same, you could do an allocation amendment and shift those funds to another member that has spent all their money and is going to be hurt by the 10% cut. So you could do that as well. So Karen, I would look at, if you didn't want to hurt their base allocation, you could always do an allocation amendment after you submit the CFAD. That could still help move money around to members that need it, and that could make do with members that have those excess funds in a prior year. So you don't necessarily have to do it via the CFAD. You could do it in an allocation amendment. So Todd says, Ryan, maybe you can type. Oh, okay. So we already took care of Ryan. Oh, I'm way down on the messages here. Let me, okay. Kristen says, can you explain the references in the May revise to federal funding that may impact? So they're waiting on the Senate and the House, I guess. There's that proposed legislation, HEROES. It's supposed to be a whole bunch of money that, if passed, could help us. But, the governor had to move forward with this. They have to pass a budget. So if that comes in, yes, there will be a change, but it wouldn't count on that right now. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen there. Bob says, the same criteria as determining CFAD just approved should apply to revised CFAD. Correct. So the revised CFAD could, if criteria are met, different from CFAD just approved. Correct. So in Bob's circumstance or situation that he's referencing here, let's say you come back and you have a discussion after you've done your CFAD, you're talking about your revised CFAD, and somebody says, my agency is really hurting this 10%. We had this, I have tons of students coming in. Online learning is going great. If I get a 10% cut, I'm not going to be able to serve these students, and I have this great online program. And so in this case, another member might say, oh, well, I'm not doing any online learning, so I'm not going to be able to provide these services. When we had the CFAD discussion before, I thought we were going to be, brick and mortar in the classroom, and I thought I was going to weather it, but I'm not going to be able to use these funds anymore because we can't. So then they could put that money back. So just because your original CFAD said this, you could change it in the revised CFAD if circumstances have changed. Keep in mind the Ed Code 84914. So thank you for Branca and Diana to uploading the information. Jody says, Ed Code addresses allocations. If bylaws address excess carryovers, these funds could be redistributed. Right. So the excess carryover could be taken care of by an allocation amendment in NOVA. And you would go to your bylaws about that if you had bylaws. Burr says, Neil, can you share the link of where the policy is? I looked under Kate. Okay. So I think somebody shared that link, Burr. Bob says, is June 30th soon enough for direct funded consortia to report out? I'd hate to get that interagency agreement that late to CDE because CDE is going to take, I can't even predict how long they're going to take. I was hoping to get that to them by the end of this month. And so what I could do is I might do estimates. I could lowball it. So at least you get something in September, October, and then we could do an adjustment. Yes, Bob.
The question was June 13th.
Yeah, I still think, I mean,
That's still too late.
it's kind of late still.
Okay.
But I mean, I know you guys have to go through public hearings. You have to have this discussion. But I know on the other hand, I know you guys need this money in August and we can't go through another year of getting this out in January because the districts are going to be hurt. People aren't going to be loaning money to the adult ed. And then they'll, start looking at other things. I just don't want to have that opportunity for districts to start getting into your business because you're asking them for money. So our goal is to try to get this money out as soon as possible this year, given the circumstances. And I'll be working with, there's only a handful of those direct funded agencies that I'll be working with that we could ballpark something or something you could live with. And then we could always do an additional allocation after the fact if you guys can't pull it together or give me an amount. So the actual date would be June 30th. We'll send out a memo. So that's Lonzi's question. That's pretty quick. Is there an actual date, May 30th, June 15th? The actual date that we did last year, and we'll put it in a memo, will be June 30th. So that's how we did it last year. That seems to be a good time period. So Shamila says, what's the 10.0 you mentioned at the beginning, but now you're saying? So it depends on if you're looking at this year to cut or prior year to cut, Shamila. So if you're looking at 2021, it's about a 12.3% cut. If you're looking at the prior year, 1920, it would be about a 10.0928 cut, if that makes sense. Those are two different amounts, so two different cuts, right? But if you want to make it simple, just stick with the 2021 allocation that you submitted via your CFAD and go with the 12.3 cut. We'll have more firm numbers probably next week. So Christy says, just to confirm, after the CFAD approval, an allocation amendment will not change the base allocation year to year. Correct. So you could submit your CFAD, everybody take the 12.3% cut, and then you could do your quote unquote allocation amendment, horse trading, moving money around, and it wouldn't affect the prior year amount for the next year, or your base allocation, as you said. It's probably a better term. So Dana says, so 18-19 funds need to be spent by December 2020. Could this be extended to June 2021? It might help some members. So Dana, what I would say is that money should be plugged in this year. That 18-19 should really be plugged into the calculations to cover the cut. If that member has 18-19 funds, they should be doing an allocation amendment to share it with the 2021 allocation, because I don't know, kind of this money doesn't belong to each member. It's part of the consortia. So I think the consortia has to have that discussion, where the needs are, where the priorities. And if there's that excess money sitting back in 18-19, that should really be on the table for discussion by the consortia. And I'm never going to get someone to approve carrying old money forward into 2021 when people are getting cut in the same year. So you got to look at this as a consortia pot of money, not an individual member pot of money. So that member should be, how can I help the consortia, not how can I carry that money over for another year, if that makes sense. So we have to cut for 2019. What if we are fully spent? Are we cutting 12% for? So Janet, it's 12.3% from your 2021 CFAD that you just submitted.
Okay. And that's it. Not 2019.
Well,
That one was been fully like either spent or.
yes. So if you're looking at expenses, we're not talking about that. We're just,
Sure.
your allocation,
Talking
it's a
about-
12.3 cut.
For 1 year allocation.
Right. Well, as far as we know.
Right. So far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Neil, this is Pedro.
Hi, Pedro.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
So the just for clarification, the 10% cut to the reference to the 1920 gives members an opportunity to look at what would it mean based on what I operated with this year. If I had used all of that money this year, it's about a 10 and a little bit more.
Yeah. So Pedro, your allocation last year was 4,466,429. Then you got a COLA this year of 102,280, which brought your 2021 allocation up to 568,709. So the cut to that amount was 553,157 or so. And so your new amount would be 4,015,641 roughly, if that calculates kind of what you're looking at.
Correct. And so that's the reference, because one reference is we were planning was the COLA, and then the other reference was what did we work with this year?
Right. So, I mean, so you could look at it this way too. Your allocation in 1920 was 4,466,429. And now you're getting a $450,000 cut to your last year, your 1920 allocation. And it's going to bring it down to the 4,015,648. I mean, that's if you didn't want to look at the COLA. You could look at, okay, what's a cut to my base from last year? And that's where the 10% comes in versus the 12.3. So there's a couple of ways you could look at it. You could look at it, okay, what was my base last year? What's my new amount this year? What's the cut to the base? Or you could say, okay, we just went through the CFAD process. So my 2021 allocation is this. How much am I getting cut to that? So it's a couple of ways you could do it. I've seen people do it somewhat differently, projected, this and that. So I don't know, does that kind of help, Pedro, a little bit?
No, it does, because I think it helps for we're having a conversation on Monday, and it helps for that conversation for our group.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, technically the COLA was factored in there, but you never got the COLA, but you did get last year's funding. So I don't know, some people approach these things differently. So I wanted to give everybody the option to look at things either from a prior year's perspective or from a current year's perspective, or the budget year 2021.
Sounds great. Appreciate that. I appreciate that, Neil. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. So Kristen says, anyone want to provide some commentary on the significance of this? This is devastating, or this could be worse, or seems CAEP fared better than some other programs, and that might be, just curious. So strong workforce took a big cut. Apprenticeship took a big cut, more so than us proportionately. Could have been worse. I know I'm going to have CAEP, TAP, OTAN, whoever else step up to offer the free professional development. So if you were looking to cut somewhere that 10%, you could look at professional development and try to rely on your vendors that'll be ramping up to provide free services to your faculty, teachers, administrators, coordinators. You won't be traveling as much. We're going to try to do a virtual summit in October, so you won't have to pay for that. So these are things that you could think about. You know, if people are looking for ways to save money, we're going to try to ramp up to cover some of that PD stuff that maybe, I don't know if it'll add up to 10%, but it could lessen the blow. We're still working out those details. And Kelly says, Neil, will you be able to give us the final allocation numbers before Wednesday? We have a consortium meeting. Yeah, I'm hoping to post this early next week into Nova. And Kelly, if you email me, I could give you the numbers that I have right now. They're off by a little bit because I don't have the exact dollars, but it's probably within $10 or $20, close. So let's see. Oh, Janet.
Yeah, I have a question about PD. I know that it's highly recommended that we cut it. And I know I'm going to share the great news about OTAN and our CAEP tech support. Technical assistant. Thank you so much. But what if they want to offer some type of a different type of training that is required for them to do remote instruction? So what I'm hearing is not that it's not completely, that it's still an allowable cost that we have PD. We just have to be obviously mindful given the
yeah, it's up to the consortia to figure that out. I'm just giving you kind of some tips to look at, but it'll be a consortia decision because each region's a little different.
Right.
And what I would do is you could contact, SCOE and see, we want to do this next year. What could you do to help us out? And they could, give you a response back, and you could factor that in that, oh, maybe I was going to spend this amount, and now if they're going to help us out, I only need to spend this amount, or maybe they can't do it and you still need to fund the full amount. So those are just suggestions. It's really a consortia decision. The state is not mandating cuts to any particular object code. But it is things that people look at because travel and training are usually the first things to go. There is a question I wanted to address that Nora asked or commented. She said, worst will be if funds become unrestricted as happened before. So this is an important point. Although we have statute in place that protects our funds, and we have the regional consortia that helps manage the funds, there will be budget hearings, I guess starting sometime in the future. I guess it would have to be this month because they have to get that budget through. But at those hearings, districts will ask for flexibility. And it doesn't matter if it's a college district or a K-12 district, they will ask for categorical flexibility. And this is where, if you're advocating for your program, you need to hold tight to your restricted funds mantra. And I think we've been pretty vocal so far, but we need to continue that because someone could slip some trailer bill language in, and there we go. We're back under flexibility. And I know there's a lot of misunderstanding of, adult ed's flexible again, but we do have AB 104. It is protected, but we've got to watch out for that trailer bill. We've got to tell our members what's going on, and I can't say too much more about that because I can't really advocate one way or another, but it was a good point brought up. So Thatcher says, so we will have the CFAT updated numbers in Nova early next week, ready for approval. Yes. I'd have it today if I had the right numbers, Thatcher. I have my spreadsheet, but the numbers aren't accurate yet because I don't have it down to the dollar. So Ryan says, I've been an adult ed for 24 years, witnessed 2009 cuts firsthand and believe that will have fared extremely well. The performance of programs and advocacy has been strong locally and statewide for the past few years. And this is a result, or the result. Thank you, Ryan. But let's stay vigilant. What Will says, what if we have a meeting on Monday? Can we email to get, yeah, you can do that. Any guidance on how cuts with SWP could be supported with CAEP? Guidance as it relates to supplanting? As long as it's in the 7 program areas and it's non-credit, I don't know if SWP is normally credit. We only have a few examples in the state where it's helping non-credit. So you could email me offline because I only know of a couple of examples with strong workforce.
Sure.
All right. So Amy said, oh, thank you for your leadership support guidance. All right. Thank you. We gave SWP, have not gave. I don't know what that means, Kelly. So Christy says flexibility really seems to have an impact on K-12 adult eds. Last time, will flexibility also affect community colleges if it gets through? Yeah, so that's where you have to be careful too, because on these webinars and stuff leading up to the May revise, there was a lot of discussion on giving local control and categorical flexibility on the college side. So they would need a change in statute, meaning a change in law, to get at the CAEP funds. So that's where the budget hearings are going to be important. That's where you have to push back if someone says that, to say, hey, trailer bill's not passed. There's nothing in legislation that allows you access to our funds. Plus, these funds are on the K-12 side is being used for adult ed. On the college side is being used for non-credit. So I can't see them taking it and using it for credit unless given that authority by the legislature, which I find that hard to believe could happen. Let's see, Todd says, anyone from a school district advocating for flexibility with adult ed funding should be reminded how that panned out last time. Questionable use and federal concerns regarding supplanting and then begging for money in the new AEBG CAEP model. Okay. Crystal says, wouldn't it dismantle our consortia if there is flexibility? Our plans would be useless. That's a good point. Okay, so went through all the questions. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a comment or you wanted to share. I'm tired of talking, so let's let you guys talk. And like I said, I can send you the rough numbers that I have if you want to email me. Other than that, Carolyn says, your voice will be important at the hearings. There's an education hearing on Monday. Ooh, send rough numbers by Monday possible. Okay, yeah, I could do that. Maybe over the weekend. If Carolyn knows, do you know what time the hearing is on Monday? That's the first I've heard about it. Thank you for mentioning that, Carolyn.
It's a K-12 hearing, but I just think that the voices are important, and so I'm trying to find it on the calendar. So I'll put it in the chat as soon as I find it.
All right, thank you. All right, so I will get those numbers out. Remember, they're rough numbers, because I don't have actual dollar amounts. I have like to the thousands. So, but it can give you an idea of what those cuts are, like I did with Pedro, and I think I did that with somebody else. I forget who else I did it with, but you get the drift. I have it all calculated. But then you might get confused if you look at the prior year and the current year. So maybe should I just send you what? You just want the 2021 allocation, the cut, and the new amount, right?
Yeah.
Do you really need to see last year's prior amount?
No, I think just
No.
for this upcoming year would be good, Neil.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'll hide it. So if you're really inclined and have like a real a need to see all the detail, you could do that, but I'll hide it. So all you'll be looking at is, here's your 2021 allocation, here's the cut or the estimated cut, and here's the estimated new amount. And I can send that out to everyone today.
Neil, I apologize. This is Will from South Orange County Consortium. I just heard conflicting to things you've been talking about, so I want to make sure I have it understand correctly. The 66.7 million, you're taking it off of a $550 million. What's the difference between the two pots? Like, I'm looking at it for 1 year, and I was with an AXA meeting last night saying adult ed was a 50% cut, but I'm hearing from you adult ed is a 12 point or the 10 point, depending on how you look at it, cut.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they got their number, because our allocation this year was 550,897,000. So a 50% cut would be, 280 something million dollars, or close to that. We're not even near that number, so
Okay.
not sure where they got that information.
Neil,
Yeah, I don't think that was even in the budget line anywhere. That kind of a cut.
yeah, Neil, that gentleman that commented, I think he was from the field, that was commenting on the 50% cut. It was confusing. It was stated a couple of times, but I think he was reading the legislation where they said there was like some 50% cut to categoricals. That was mentioned. And then they assumed adult ed was in that categorical category. So there was some confusion in that AXA meeting about where adult ed fell in a categorical capacity. But I think it was clarified. It was more along the lines of this 10%, 12% that we're talking about right now, depending on how you look.
Right.
Right, and
Oh, go ahead, Carolyn.
thanks. And I jumped, when we looked at the governor's budget and it said the adult ed block grant, I sent an email to DOF right away and said, wait a minute, in ed code it says this. And they said, oh yeah, that was an oversight on our part. Okay, good. So,
So let me ask this, is adult ed, even though we have it in statute, are we still considered a categorical? I don't know if anybody wants to answer that, because we are protected by our AB 104 statute. So does anybody know how they define a categorical?
I don't know how they define a categorical. I know we've been trying to get them to change that here at CDE, and to say that it's an apportionment dollar that's going out. It's not, it's considered ongoing.
Right.
I think they consider, CDE fiscal considers a categorical as anything that's a pot of money that's set aside for certain requirements.
Okay.
But we did not get the 50% cut like some of the other things. Like I think CTIG might have gotten a pretty significant cut. So CTIG is the CTE incentive grant.
It might be worth just, I don't know who would do it, but I mean, I could see district administrators and budget guys or finance guys at the district maybe not understanding that distinction, and when their adult ed folks comment to that may not be as believable. So I'm not saying somebody should send something out, but I could see district finance guys being a little confused by that and assuming there's a big cut to adult ed. I'll just mention that for what it's worth.
Okay, that's probably why people want to have these numbers so they can show their business person or accounting office that it's not 50%, but these are unofficial estimates. So until I get the actual numbers and put them into Nova, and we probably need to send out a memo, Carolyn, with instructions on, the revise and the due date, and have a chart or showing the cuts so people can say, yeah, see, it's not, here's the official memo, shows the cuts, it's not 50%, it's more like 12.3%. So I think we'll work on that over the weekend, and Javier and Carolyn we could get that out on Monday as well.
Yeah, and so here's the information on the hearing on Monday. It's Assembly Subcommittee number 2 on Education and Finance. So it's Assemblyman McCarty's committee, and the hearing starts at 1:30. I don't know, the agenda is K-12 and early childhood education, but because a significant portion of the adult ed funds go to K-12, I think that's an important piece, and also the fact that we do so much with family literacy as well, that could be brought up in any talking points that some of you might consider, is how we help to support families for their children to be successful. But I know that we overwhelmed them last time. Neil and I were both very proud, I would say, to hear so many voices on that last hearing that were adult ed, and adult ed overwhelmed all of the other voices. So
Right. Yeah, and the comments in the chat, it looks like we kind of go back and forth because it is apportionment, but I guess the people still refer to us as categorical, even though we are apportionment. And that was the big bugaboo about changing it from a block grant to CAEP. So it looks like we still have more work to do to get the categorical terminology out of people on CAEP, not the block grant, even though they refer to us as the block grant still. So let's see. I'm trying to work my way down the list here. Neil, documentation does help if I need to bring in a consortia leadership for a meeting. Yes. So we'll get that memo out.
mhm.
Any other questions? And then Jody says, SSC guidance is where districts will take information. And that's the one where they mention flexibility going into the hearings and possibly changing statute. So that's where we need to keep focused on protect CAEP from trailer bill language that would flex us. So, and I think that's where I saw it too, Jody, was in the update from school services. Nora says, we really need to engage in this advocacy effort. This will help to maintain our voice.
So I'm curious to know how many people were watching the governor's speech yesterday via YouTube, because if you watched the chat, there was a whole lot of adult ed comments in the chat. Save adult ed, protect adult ed. It was pretty prevalent throughout that whole chat, which I thought was good.
Yeah, I saw that. It was kind of, there got a little weird.
Oh yeah, got some weird stuff in
on
there.
the immigration. I noticed that got a little weird, but for the most part, it was really positive towards adult. I don't know if people were making the connection to adult ed and immigration, or they were just spouting off about immigrants in general. I don't think the immigrant haters were making the connection to adult ed.
They
I don't
weren't.
know. I hope
I
not.
don't think they were.
All right, so let's see. Okay, so everybody was kind of on that same thing. Susie, soon to be retired Susie, but we still have her, I think, for the summer. Legislators are taking Zoom appointments right now. Important to do. Great guidance on CCAE website. All right, Mary Ann says adult ed rocks. Seems like state employees were not happy. Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? 2 days furlough. That's better than what could have happened, I guess. So Bronca says, I think we need to collect and share every day stories about how we serve our adult learners currently. And we talk to decision makers from the now through June and August. Yeah, so we have the Google group out there. We only got one response, I think. or at least maybe it's not working, but I posted a new question this week, but I haven't got too many responses. So if you haven't joined the Google group, that could be used to keep us up to date on what's happening, share stuff, talk to one another. So let's see, will Friday, I don't know, I'm gonna ask Holly. So Holly, will Friday work for a CFAD revision webinar?
We
But-
we do have an office hours scheduled for Friday, but we can definitely look into this on Monday and see if there's a different time that would work.
Well, what we could do is we could just extend the office hours and do a CFAD webinar and questions on Friday. Just go from 1 to 2:30, and Veronica could go through the steps again on the CFAD. I could go over that memo that we're going to send out, and maybe I'll have more firm numbers, and we could walk through NOVA and then just answer any questions. So we could combine it for next Friday if that works.
Yes, I think we can for sure make that work.
Okay, great.
So Neil, I got the impression that the field might need that memo sooner than next Friday, especially.
Oh, no. We're going to send out the memo Monday. But
Okay.
we'll go over just the how to do a revised CFAT in NOVA, and then just go over any other documentation that might be available in case they're late to the party.
Okay, got it.
But I'll work on getting that memo out on Monday if we can. So Carolyn, if you have a chance to contact Chris Ferguson to get maybe whole numbers, because right now I'm just working with 66.7 million, but if they have a whole amount, which I think is 66,687,000, I think is the real number, but I need to be sure. So, or just give us the new allocation amount for CAEP. I mean, currently I have something along the lines of 484,208,000. If that's going to be our new allocation for 2021, it would be great for them to confirm it, because then I could get that spreadsheet all worked out using the actual numbers, and then that's what we would put into NOVA, and that's what we could put on the memo. So,
Yeah, so I'll reach out to finance as soon as we're done on this call and see what number I can get.
okay, that'd be great. Yeah, because then I could start plugging away stuff, and we could get that onto the memos so people can start working with real numbers, because it sounds like people are going to hit the ground running. And then Monday with the hearing.
Yeah, and they were really responsive yesterday, so
Okay.
quickly, so.
Okay. So let's see. Anything else? I mean, I know we have a lot going on now. So we got hearing on Monday. We've got the revised CFAD memo and new allocations. We're going to have a webinar on Friday to go over this. We've got, the interagency agreement. Maybe, Carolyn, maybe you can ask about the interagency agreement with DOF as well. Are we still going to need that, or has something changed in that area? That would help too. So if we're making a concerted effort to get all the direct funded agencies to get us that information, if we still need to go through those hoops, it would be great to know. If we don't have to go through those hoops, that would be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, I'll, when I craft my email to them, I'll put that in there.
Okay. Because right now we're working with the assumption that we still need to get a bunch of money to CDE through an interagency agreement for you guys to disperse, hopefully this fall.
Right.
If that's not the case, then that puts less pressure on the direct funded members to get that CFAD done as soon as possible.
All right.
So, all right. Well, that went really quick today. All right. Well, thank you for spending an hour today. We could probably go like 3 hours if we
Right.
wanted to. But we've all got a lot of work to do. So let's rest up this afternoon and this weekend and get prepared for next week, because God only knows we've got we've got a lot of work ahead of us. So a lot of good information today, and we'll continue doing this. And thank you for Carolyn being on, and thanks to Holly filling in today as Veronica. Usually Holly's behind the scenes, so she did a good job being out in front. So we look forward to having everyone back in place on Monday, and we'll hope you enjoy the weekend.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.